So welcome to today's discussion around practical chemistry. My name's Aylin Ozkan and I work for the Royal Society of Chemistry and I'm an education policy specialist. So at the RSC, we believe that practical chemistry is an essential part of the chemistry discipline because we think it supports the understanding of the subject and it's core to understanding the question, how we do chemistry. So skills developed through practical chemistry activities can be used by young people in their future studies and careers in the sciences and beyond. We believe that all students should have an access to take part in direct, first-hand and often hands-on practical chemistry activities to support them in developing their practical skills, understand scientific concepts, and increase their motivation and enjoyment of chemistry. However, in our 2023 Science Teaching Survey, which received 2,932 responses from across the UK and the Republic of Ireland, teachers told us that there was insufficient time for practical to be taught alongside theory. They said that student behaviour was challenging, that there was issues with cost of consumables and chemicals and a lack of equipment. There were issues with no time for training and practicing and understaffing of science technicians. We have recently published a policy position on practical work, which outlines how we can ensure that practical chemistry remains a core part of the discipline. So today we're here with our guest, Helen Scally, who is a head of chemistry in Scotland, and Daniella Forde, who's a senior science technician in Wales. And we will be discussing the practical science landscape and what needs to change to ensure that it is accessible to all young people. So welcome, Helen and Daniella. To start off, could I briefly get you to introduce yourselves?
I'll go first. My name's Helen Scally, and I am head of chemistry at a school just outside of Glasgow. I've been there for around about 10 years or so, but I've been teaching in total for about 16 years.
Amazing, thank you. Daniella?
Hi, I'm Daniella Forde. I'm a senior science technician at a secondary school in Cardiff, South Wales. And I've currently been in this post for the last 2 years.
Thank you so much. And I just want to start off with you, Helen, if that's all right. So we believe that practical chemistry is really important in schools, but could you explain a little bit why you think that practical chemistry is an important aspect of school science education?
Absolutely. I've been thinking about this question a lot, and I think the first thing that jumped into my mind was actually enjoyment, and the fact that young people absolutely love to get up on their feet, to get practical and to participate in practical experiments. There's so many times that young people come into my classroom and say, "Are we doing an experiment today?" Like, that's the first thing they say. And it's so important that we're able to provide those opportunities for them. I think it's really important, especially in secondary schools, to continue to promote curiosity and wonder, and also those key kind of observation skills that are so important in kind of everyday life and also life as a scientist, both in the school and outside of school. Also, of course, it promotes active learning and really deep thinking about the course content, and would then support the retention of knowledge and understanding in key concepts in the curriculum, and just being so important to link the theory that young people are learning about to reality really deepens their understanding of it. I think also with practical work and investigations, they're developing their thinking skills in terms of kind of higher order thinking skills and how to evaluate their practical experiment or investigation. And again, it is just all about those skills that are really important for kind of life outside of school, whether that's within a kind of science career or not. They still need to be kind of scientifically literate and understand the principles of kind of practical work and investigations.
Thank you so much, Helen. Daniella, I was wondering whether what your thoughts were on this as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with Helen. The pupils are excited about doing practical work. They ask their teacher every day, "Are we doing practical today, miss?" I think it's the light bulb moment for some of them over the theory, that they can see the chemical changes, they can understand how a graph can be plotted from different experiments. So I think it's that connection really without the physical aspect. I don't think all pupils, because they're all different levels of understanding, will get it. So I think practical is really, really important for alongside theory work.
Yeah, thank you so much. And actually at the RSC, we agree with that as well. We believe that, the purpose of practical chemistry activities are to learn and develop practical skills that can be future for study and employment, but also understand the theory, like you were mentioning, and increasing the motivation and enjoyment of students. So thank you so much. And it's nice that, we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. Just kind of moving on to the next question. So within our science teacher survey, unfortunately, we found that there was insufficient time for practical work to be taught alongside theory. And I was wondering what your experiences were of this. And I just wanted to ask you, Helen, as a science teacher, what you thought of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It's really frustrating as a practitioner who really values practical work that we feel really constrained by the curriculum and it being so kind of crowded and overloaded. I know it is different across the different nations, but it is an issue in Scotland as well as the other nations. And I think especially in senior years, in our senior qualification years, young people do have to do practical experiments as part of their course components, but it's really difficult to build in the time as well as teaching the content and the theory to develop the skills that they need to be able to demonstrate as part of their that component. And I think that's quite often it's the practical work that's first to be compromised when you're trying to get through a lot of content, and there can be other things that happen in the classroom, such as kind of behaviour issues or whatever, and different needs of young people that mean there's not as much time as you would like to actually do those really valuable experiments. I think lower down the school, especially in Scotland, we're given a little bit more flexibility to develop skills, and certainly in my school this year we've decided to kind of pare down some of the content lower down in the school, and that's just because we really value the skills that young people need to develop to be kind of good scientists, and if we can get those in the early years in the secondary school, then that'll support them later on when the content really is quite heavy, and we still need them to have those skills. So yeah, it is a real struggle, and it's something that can be really frustrating when we want to develop the skills.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it is unfortunately something that we've been hearing across the board here in England as well, and kind of in Wales, and kind of, through our teacher survey in Northern Ireland as well. So kind of moving on to the next issue that came out of our science teacher survey, we also heard that there were issues with recruiting technicians and teachers in schools. And I was wondering how this affected you or your colleagues. And I was wondering whether, Daniella, if we could start with you first as a technician.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I joined my current school as a technician with no previous technician experience. And I went into the job without a handover. So there wasn't a technician in place that I could, have a full understanding of what the role actually was from. So that was really, really challenging. I found that there wasn't that much support for technicians in Wales. There was a lot more going on in Bristol and further up the motorway then, if you like, but nothing directly with us. I think to a degree, it is a skill. It's a very skilled job and it's an experienced job. And the older generation are retiring, and unfortunately, a lot of knowledge will go missed. It won't be handed down properly, which is really, it's sad, really. So it's hard to keep technicians. Again, pay is a big one for technicians. A lot of people complain about it. I've been fortunate that I've had increases with my county. I've been lucky. Not everybody is. And it's the draw of the responsibility of the job, really. It's more than just, helping to deliver equipment. There's lots of health and safety around it, and you've got behaviour in classrooms and things like that you have to understand and be aware of. I love the job, absolutely love it. I love my team, my department, they're amazing. But I know a lot of other technicians find challenges and therefore perhaps more inclined to look somewhere else for a different job, and therefore it's hard to retain good technicians. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Daniella. And kind of, I guess, kind of, Helen, what's kind of your experience around this and the recruitment and retention of teachers and technicians?
Yeah, I think Danielle made some really good points there. The pay is just not kind of commensurate with the skill and experience that technicians need to have. And it makes it really difficult for the retention of technicians. I also think that technicians can sometimes feel kind of underappreciated and undervalued. And really, as a core member of the science team, we can't function as, like, optimally without our technicians. Currently in my authority, there have been quite a lot of cutbacks, and it's always the support staff, of which kind of within my authority, the technicians are part of that team, that are the first kind of to get cutbacks. So instead of having a senior technician and a regular technician, we now have a regular technician and half a senior technician. So our technician is split between two schools, and it just means that for half the week, our technician is doing the job of two people. And really that has huge implications on her workload, her stress, what she's able to do within her capacity. We've got really good systems, but a lot of things also do work on goodwill. And if she's just not able to kind of support us because she's only one person, then there's experiments that are not going to get done. And it's ultimately the young people that are affected because they're not going to be able to access those experiences. Another thing that when I was chatting to our technician, she mentioned that there's just no progression for technicians really anymore. So because this senior role has been cut back, there's a few and far between of those. I'm in quite a small authority, so there's nowhere really for aspiring technicians to move on to. So that again affects the retention. They're going to move somewhere else where they can get paid better, have a better work-life balance, better working conditions, and have better progression.
Thank you so much. And I guess, yeah, you've both mentioned similar issues there in terms of, the progression and the pay for technicians and how much responsibility you have. And it's definitely something to kind of consider and make sure that kind of we're working towards kind of increase, developing that and making sure that we have access to technicians in schools. At the RSC, kind of moving on from the recruitment and retention, we kind of advocate for access to subject-specific professional learning and development opportunities for teachers and science technicians to increase their expertise and confidence when teaching or supporting practical chemistry activities. So I was wondering whether what CPD was like in your regions and whether you think it was adequate.
Where I am, we are well supported by CERC in terms of practical experiments, and also we value those activities where we can go and complete CPD in person and get hands-on experience in laboratories doing experiments that maybe we haven't had the chance to do. And there are a couple of other organisations that support teachers in a similar way. And obviously there's loads of resources and activities in CPD provided by the RSC as well. But I think one thing that's really struck me in the past couple of years is just how difficult it is to get out of school to attend those professional development activities. And although there's lots online that teachers can do kind of in the evenings or on demand, really it's so important to get hands-on experience. And for that, you need to be released from your working day to attend those courses. And I have also noticed that some of those in-person events, the frequency of them is declining, since COVID. And it's a shame because I know that many teachers really appreciate those types of opportunities. Again, just like lots of things, cost is a real issue. Some activities that are subsidised, or you can kind of apply for funding to attend, are kind of few and far between, but really valued by practitioners, because quite often there's simply not any funding available from the school in order to attend those things. And also the supply teachers, sort of the fact that it's really difficult for us to find supply teachers to cover teachers when they go out of school, is just another challenge there. So it's kind of the cost, but even the availability of supply teachers, if the cost wasn't an issue, is also a barrier. So it's quite frustrating that there are activities out there, but they're not always easily accessible by teachers.
For CPD in South Wales, we don't have a lot of support, but what we do have is good. We use links such as the Royal Society of Chemistry. There's a fantastic lady, Rebecca Lays, who's worked quite closely with me. I set up a network when I first joined my school. Like I said, there was a lack of support. So I was lucky enough to actually get funding through the Royal Society of Chemistry to start up a network. And Rebecca's come out to the school. We've got over 35 members, technicians in South Wales on the group, and they've come along and had CPD days for microscale chemistry. So, that's really good for us, because a lot of CPD tends to be in York, Southampton. It's not accessible to us. It's just too far. We obviously use CLEA apps for things like practical advice and things like this. I'm really fortunate that my head of department fully backs CPD. He encourages me to look for it, or if I see a course that I think would be interesting, he'll say, yeah, we'll sign up to that. And, things do cost money, it's expensive, so we do try and look for initiatives or programs where it's free for teachers and technicians to join the courses, or conferences and things like that. Again, we've got the ASE and Kerry Ann and Harrod, who's brilliant, who does a tech meet for us every couple of months. That keeps us in the loop. Suppliers, different things going on in industry that is really important to know. Again, for our pupils, for when they leave education, and what's out there basically. We've made links with Swansea University, which have we've had days where we've done making aspirin and different things like that, because I only go up to GCSE where I am. I don't do A-level and above. But yeah, so, and you've got to be, as a technician, you've got to chase it yourself. If you don't chase it, you won't get CPD. So, if it's something you're interested in, have a look at STEM. Again, have a look on the RC's website. There's lots out there that you can find. It just would be nice to get more locally in South Wales.
So unfortunately, teachers have told us about issues around cost of consumables and chemicals, and also a lack of equipment in schools. And at the RSC, we support schools with our Elevating Chemistry Fund. So schools can receive up to about £3,000 with this fund, and it's available to support learners in areas of high socioeconomic deprivation. And it's to help them, help students and learners to feel that they can achieve in chemistry. And we've heard from our colleagues that in our most recent applications for the fund, 27% of applications were just to pay for equipment and chemicals. So we were quite surprised by this, and this was just for kind of general equipment and chemicals. This kind of echoes our findings in the Science Teacher Survey as well, where cost of consumables and chemicals were an issue. So I just wanted to ask, Helen, if I start off with you, what you or your colleagues' experience was around funding issues.
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely something that's been quite a concern of mine in the past couple of years. And I've been really surprised and shocked at the increases of chemicals and the prices that we're paying for those. In Scotland, we have a kind of centralised government procurement system, so we have to go through that system that has agreed suppliers for particular items. And whilst that has benefits in terms of core items being cheaper, supposedly across the whole of the country, it means that we're really tied into those suppliers for all our chemicals. And what I'm finding is that things are just not economical at all, and it's not an efficient use of my budget. Often I'll see that there's certain things I can buy from Amazon cheaper, but I can't do that with my school budget. I have to go through the official system, and it's just really frustrating because it's a waste of money, and it means that certain things can't get done in my school. Also, we tend to have to buy, like the cheapest items. So for certain experiments, if we're looking at hydrocarbons, we'll just be buying the kind of cheapest one that does the trick and then using that and kind of not fudging the results, but telling the pupils you've got hexane, heptane, pentane, but actually we've just got whatever alkane is the safest to use in all the bottles. And whilst that's not a terrible situation to be in, it's still kind of not transparent and true and maybe the way that I would like to work. Some experiments might need to be demos because we don't have the money to buy, for example, like Pyrex beakers for it to be a pupil experiment, and that can also affect the learner's experience. And we also tend to stick to our known experiments and activities that we know work. We know that they are kind of cost efficient, and we aren't really able to experiment because we don't want to gamble on chemicals that may be expensive and then not give us the reward that we want in terms of pupil experience. And one thing I love about the RSC is the kind of introduction and promoting of microscale experiments. And obviously that works with being very cost effective, but also sustainable. But one thing that's frustrated me is that the little tiny bottles that you can use for those microscale experiments, I can't buy them on my system. I have to then buy them from Amazon with my own money. And that, although it's not a lot of money, it's not really the way it should be. I should be able to buy those with school funds in order to sort of provide those activities for the young people in my school. So it can be quite frustrating at times when we know how valuable these practical experiments are.
Thank you so much, Helen. That's really interesting. And I was wondering, Daniella, what your opinion was as a science technician on the funding issues.
Yeah, I think it's the same across the boards, all schools are facing, tough budgets this time around, aren't they? Everyone's cutting back. And when you've got chemicals like ethanol, which is extortionate, and silver nitrate, that, and they're required to use them, you're looking for alternatives, or you're just giving out the most minute amount of everything, Microscale, is brilliant, it's more sustainable. But again, like Helen said, you can't buy those things through your scientific suppliers. Amazon is coming up a lot cheaper. Schools don't like you to do that. They don't like you to use your own money, and when you do, it's tight. It takes ages to get that back. So yeah, it's a big problem. And again, we don't have a full class set of breaths and things like this. So stock items, they get broken. Glassware gets broken, and yeah, it can be really, really expensive.
I just wanted to go on to the last question. So in the future, what is one thing that you'd like to see in terms of the education sector that can improve student access to practical chemistry education, do you think? Helen, I'll start with you if that's all right.
Yes, it's kind of difficult to pick one thing, but if I was going to pick one thing, it would be about the curriculum, and it would be streamlining the content that's in the curriculum, because ultimately teachers are needing to teach the young people to be successful in exams right now. And so effectively we've got to get through the content in order to prepare them best for those kind of final steps in their school education. So I would like to see the curriculum changed and even assessments and final assessments changing. And I know that's something that's kind of in the pipeline in Scotland. I'd like to see more of a focus on the skills development and practical skills, and a real sense that those are important skills for young people to develop, and also important kind of experiences, and how much value that those practical experiments kind of add to the young person's experience of chemistry and science. So that's probably the one thing that I would ask for.
Thank you so much. Daniella?
I think for me, it's starting from the beginning. We expect so much of our first year students. Our expectations are quite high that they already know a lot, when in fact they actually don't. So I think, to be good at practical work, I think a bit of more support then in before they come up to us in science, basic, things like how to use a thermometer, and how to read a ruler, because not all of our pupils do know that. So I think for us to be successful, if we could have a good starting point where the children have got a little bit more knowledge, a bit more confidence coming in, I think I'd like to see that. I think that could help our curriculum a lot.
Yeah, so do you mean from primary level?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for both attending this discussion. It's been really interesting, and definitely some brilliant insights from both of you. Thank you. So at the Royal Society of Chemistry, we try and support science teachers, particularly chemistry teachers, and science technicians as much as we can. Teach Chemistry is open to all science teachers and technicians in secondary schools. If you register for Teach Chemistry through our website, and you can see the QR code on the screen at the moment, you can get access to lots of free resources and other education support that is accessible through us. We have lots of professional development opportunities for teachers and technicians through the Royal Society of Chemistry, and our events, Experimental Extravaganza in North and South Wales, you can see the QR codes on the screen, are available to teachers to attend. We also have our Train the Teacher fully funded workshop in November 2024 for teachers in England, if you are interested in that, and our QR code is on the screen as well. For more practical chemistry activity support, you can access them through our large collection of practical resources. So from the Royal Society of Chemistry's policy standpoint, our main asks to ensure that all young people have access to practical chemistry activities are that there is sufficient time within the curriculum to run a variety of practical chemistry activities to ensure that young people develop a breadth of practical skills and improve their understanding of a wider range of scientific theories. That schools are supported to provide hands-on practical activities as a part of their curriculum through sufficient funding for consumables and equipment, as well as science technicians. And we also recommend that teachers and school science technicians should have access to subject-specific professional learning and development opportunities to increase their expertise and confidence when teaching or supporting practical chemistry activities. Thank you so much for watching. We are always here to facilitate kind of teacher asks and technician asks on our channels. So if you would like to comment on our discussion, please do leave a comment below on our YouTube channel, and also please do share on your socials, and you can also follow us on our socials if you would like. Take care.